We just finished Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. So Stephen and I are back with our reactions.
Spoiler alert, my reaction is not good. Not good.
Not good. So what are your initial reactions?
A lot of the cinematography in this movie, continuing a trend for the last handful of Harry Potter movies and then Fantastic Beasts, the first movie, is beautiful. Cinematography, there's some great sweeping shots, some beautiful establishing shots, and some. There were definitely some choices made that I can get into, but generally speaking, I liked the cinematography. I don't know if it's kind of a chicken and an egg discussion, right? Is the editing in this movie so bad because they had to edit around the poor writing? Or is the poor writing or the edit's just bad, right? I don't know. The writing and the editing were just not great. The writing was clunky. There's way too much going on. There's like 7 or 8 different plots that you're supposed to care about going on at any given time. And the editing doesn't make it better because as we'll get to in this conversation, the way the edits work, all of a sudden you're jump cutting from one storyline to the next. And it takes a minute. It's kind of jarring. I don't know. It certainly wasn't my favorite movie. What did you think of it?
If you watch this movie on a very surface level and don't think about the actual plot or the words, but just watch it, you could enjoy this movie because it is very beautiful to watch. The magic scenes are very orchestrated in a way that they're just fun to watch. So if you're not looking much deeper beyond this is just a movie I'm watching, people could enjoy it. But we're not those people.
Before we go any further, I'm curious, do you have written down where we had ranked all of the Potter and Fantastic Beasts movies? Because I know I don't. When we did our Deathly Hallows Part 2 rewatch.
I do. For you, this came right before Goblet.
So I had this second bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, where did you have?
Bottom for me.
And what was your second bottom?
Prisoner.
Okay, interesting. Okay, cool. Helpful context for me as I think about this, because I certainly didn't remember. I knew it was towards the bottom. I didn't remember which one was worse in my head at that time. Also helpful for the listeners. So we, of course, are talking about, as Dani said, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, a movie that was released on November 16th, 2018. David Yates is back to direct, this being now his 6th installment of the Wizarding World movie franchise that he's directed. My boy from Fantastic Beasts 1, Philippe Rousselot, does the cinematography once again. Mark Day is the editor. I don't typically call it the editor, but seeing as I'm about to call him out for the rest of this podcast for how bad the edit was, thought it was worth mentioning. Mark Day was the editor who did all of David Yates' Harry Potter films and Fantastic Beasts 1 as well. So he wasn't new to the franchise, which could be an indication of if this is a writing or an editing issue, where the blame lays. Dani.
Stephen.
In 2018, many, many movies came out. I'll ask you first, where do you think this movie ranked in the top grossing movies of 2018?
4.
Okay. And would you care to have a guess, if I give you some numbers here, as to how much it grossed globally in 2018? Would your guess be A, 654 million? Would it be B, 791 million? Would it be C, 1.14 billion? Or would it be D, 1.3 billion?
Let's go with B.
So you are incorrect on both fronts. This movie is the lowest ranking and lowest grossing installment of the Wizarding World franchise. In 2018, it grossed $654 million US at the box office, putting it 10th on the 2018 top movie list. Before I start listing the movies that were there, Dani, any guesses as to what else came out in 2018?
Marvel movies.
Okay, that you got a little more specific. There's like 74 of those.
2018, maybe Endgame? Is that the year of Endgame?
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to list the top 10, and then I thought about this a little bit this morning in terms of where I think if this movie was executed well, it really should have finished. So number 1 was Avengers Infinity War, bringing in $2.04 billion. Number 2 was Black Panther, $1.34 billion. Number 3, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, $1.3 billion. Number 4, Incredibles 2, $1.24 billion. Number 5, Aquaman, $1.14 billion. Number 6, Bohemian Rhapsody. Fox making an entry in the top 10 here, $904 million. Number 7 was Venom from Sony, $856 million. Number 8, Mission Impossible Fallout from Paramount, $791 million. Number 9, Deadpool 2, again by Fox, $786 million. And finally, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, $654 million. Dani, hearing that list, just hearing the names of the movies, going in to see the movie before you had seen it, if you knew those were all the movies that were coming out in 2018, where do you think this should have ranked?
It'd probably be 6 to 7.
That's exactly right.
That's 2 powerhouse of well-known franchises being released in the same year.
Yeah, I 100% agree, right? Like, I think the 2 Avengers, Avengers Infinity War and Black Panther, the Marvel movies at the top, those make tons of sense. You're not going to displace those. Jurassic World, right? Bringing back Jurassic Park, I think, huge entity that you're not going to be able to topple. Incredibles 2, family movie, so you get tons of money there.
Pixar, and people waited a long time for the sequel to that.
Aquaman, especially back then, there was tons of buzz around.
Jason Momoa, that's all he is.
So right after Aquaman, right, I can make an argument that going into the theater, I would have put Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald ahead of Bohemian Rhapsody, ahead of Venom, ahead of Mission Impossible, ahead of Deadpool 2. Certainly the only one I would question.
Venom is the only one I would question because there is a strong fan base around it, but I agree with the rest.
Yeah, sure. That said, Bohemian Rhapsody did finish ahead of Venom, which interesting in and of itself. Anywho, point is, movie really underwhelmed.
Yeah.
We talked about this last time. Well, you started to talk about it before I corrected you because you were off by a couple years and a whole friendship.
1 year.
And a whole friendship. What? No, more than 1 year. You were off. This movie, Fantastic Beasts 1 came out in 2016. This movie came out in 2018. That's 2 years.
But we didn't. Yeah. 1 year.
Yeah, I'm correct yet again is the point here. Dani, do you want to talk about your memories of seeing Crimes of Grindelwald in the theater?
This was our first year of friendship.
And what an awful year it was.
And we were both living in such places that we did not know a lot of other people and wanted to be able to talk about this movie. And we coordinated seeing this movie. I think we ended up seeing it within like 20 minutes of each other because yours got delayed because you were on East Coast and I was in Central Time and something happened with your screening. So we got out right around the same time.
Yeah, I saw this in IMAX in Tampa with Shan and Dave. Shout out to Shan and Dave. That movie going experience was actually momentous for me in that after the movie, I was sitting next to some randoms on the left, to the left of me, and Shan and Dave to my right. And the randoms mentioned something about this YouTube channel that had tons of theories about what was going on with Crimes of Grindelwald. And I should check it out. And they said something like Super Something Brothers. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to remember that. And anywho, fast forward 3+ years now, and I watch Super Carlin Brothers every week obsessively. So that was great. Yeah, my memory, besides that, only other thing I'll say is the movie poster that came out for this is something I still want. The IMAX movie poster for Crimes of Grindelwald. It's super psychedelic. It's like a yellowish background. Grindelwald's face is kind of superimposed, almost like subconsciously there. The Deathly Hallows is very faintly visible, kind of framing the characters. I very specifically want it in the 27 by 40 size, the original, the size you would have seen when you went into those big glass panes at the movies, right? I have yet to be able to find that anywhere. If you are listening and you have a lead on that, or you have one, I only have one good kidney, so I can't really offer you a kidney. I'll offer you whatever, some limbs. I don't know. I don't know who would want my DNA, because I don't know if I'm really a catch if you're looking for that, but I'll offer you that. Whatever it takes is the point.
Let's start from the top then. Opening of the movie. We have that. We're back to that dark, later Harry Potter movie feel.
Hedwig's theme is playing as we open up and we go through the clouds, which again feels like something that I keep coming back to throughout this movie. A very intentional choice to keep seeding Harry Potter moments into this movie.
Yes. I will say this one had a bit more fan service than Fantastic Beasts.
A lot more. Was Abernathy's accent so strong in the first movie?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it, and I only hear him talking, in my head, I hear him talking to Queenie.
Yeah, and it was there was a little, it was just kind of this weird, old-timey kind of accent. His accent is much more noticeably Central European, for lack of a better phrase, in this movie.
Yeah.
And I caught that right at the beginning. Then, when the carriage, the very cool carriage, might I say, flies off, nobody questions that Abernathy walks to the ledge and stares over the ledge for a minute before then disapparating. Once he disapparates, fair enough, some shit's up. But when he's standing at the edge of a skyscraper's ledge in the rain, is no one hey, everything okay, man? You good?
Also, why does Grindelwald get a pet? And why aren't there spells to keep from people randomly apparating onto this carriage?
There's a whole lot of things going on.
I did like seeing Thestrals again. That was a nice look. That was a nod that I enjoyed, was the Thestrals.
Two questions I have about the carriage fight. A, why does the wizard inside the carriage never use his wand? When Grindelwald, Abernathy, Polyjuice, whatever, is transforming and then this fight ensues, the wizard, the victim wizard inside the carriage in the gray jacket, the ministry guy, just kind of using his hands to fight.
Yeah.
He's got a wand. I didn't understand that. The other question I have, why did Grindelwald do that weird, creepy, peek through the glass twice just to see what was going on in there? And then he kind of popped in, looked, and then popped away. Twice. It was very odd.
Yeah. That was another thing I found odd. And yes, we know it wasn't his actual wand. If you know this wizard is very dangerous to the point that you have believed to have cut out his tongue, have sedated him all max, why do you even consider putting his wand in the same carriage as him? Even though it's not actually the wand, I feel it'd be smarter to keep those two things separate.
Yeah. So anywho, that happens. I'll say it again when we get to both of the or I guess when we get to the other instance later. But between the MACUSA American ministry in Fantastic Beasts 1, seeing the British ministry here, and then seeing the French ministry later, all of the ministries are respectively gorgeous, and the way that they shoot those scenes are just really, really well done.
Yes.
It was really fun to be back in the British ministry and to see more. So friends, we had seen that corridor that Newt is doing his weird foot fetish thing. And we'd seen that before. That's where Umbridge's office is in Deathly Hallows. What we hadn't seen is when you looked up and all those offices where it's almost they're in it looked like they were homes kind of in a street, in an alley.
Yeah. But
they're office windows. It was very cool.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed seeing more of that. My next comment literally just says, Newt shoes, insert Steven comments.
Throughout this movie, Newt has, I got more. So Newt has his foot fetish here where he stares at Lita's feet and immediately knows it's Lita, which should be raising some flags from the get-go here. Hang on, I have more.
Comment on that one.
Go ahead.
So and I've noticed this more like in Newt's character, is he really doesn't make eye contact with people. So maybe like shoes is just the thing I don't know if it's necessarily fetish-ish. I know you think it is, but maybe that's just how he associates people, because he really doesn't make, even like with Tina, he does not make eye contact with her.
Jumping ahead a little bit, but he has this foot thing here. Then when he gets to France, he walks into a very serene, normal day, quiet day in the middle of the magic part of Paris.
The French Diagon Alley.
Yeah. And like nothing's going on. There's no commotion, nothing. He just starts raising a ruckus, doing this weird blow magic, and then like hones in on her feet on the ground. Sure, you're right, but I am choosing to believe that he has a foot fetish and that this movie is just rife with tons of opportunity for him to get close to feet. Anyway, one odd thing, actually, I don't think it's that odd. This movie, and I didn't do the research before this podcast, but I had read a bunch about it in the lead up to its release and then after it was released. This movie had a ton of reshoots, a lot of I don't want to say issues, but there was a lot of moving pieces of production. And so I think that explains what I'm about to say, but there's a lot of super close-ups of Newt, Theseus, and Leda in that scene right there before Newt and Theseus go into the hearing. I have to imagine it's a byproduct of reshoots and not wanting to recreate the full set or whatever, because like the camera pushes in very close and kind of plays ping pong, jumping back and forth between the three of them.
Yeah.
So a couple things. Credence is Alive is a thing that is just dropped with not a ton of explanation as to why.
And everyone seems to know it.
Yeah. And then who is the same old Scamander guy, Grimson?
And that's also a question I have, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm wondering if like, did more of his stuff get cut in the edits?
Yeah, well, so again,
like, they just couldn't work around not having him in those two random scenes. You really see him?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, the writing is too clunky. I think there's way too much going on that your eye kind of has to get drawn towards. Therefore, a lot of stuff gets muddled. I think Grimson, I think my boy Yusuf Kama, I think the whole Leda Lestrange baby switch thing, which is integral, but I think was written not so well. The Irma de Garde, which is part of the baby switch thing, I suppose. There's a lot of things here that if this was a book, I think is a really damn good book.
Yeah.
But because it's a movie, really struggles because there's way too much weight in terms of where you have to pay attention throughout this movie.
Yeah. I feel like in this context of a movie, it would have been better because of how it was written to write the actual book and then translate it rather than the other way around.
Well, that's an important distinction. And let me just confirm this before I start making up sentences here left and right. Fantastic Beasts 1 and 2, as hopefully the listeners know, right, are inspired by the textbook from Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. That is a textbook that was released in physical form for us regular people to enjoy, right? But it doesn't tell a story. It just is like an encyclopedia of creatures. It
is the book that Newt writes in movie 1.
Right. And so the reason I am establishing that is, to your point, there is no, even though there is a Fantastic Beasts book that's out there, it's not a book like Harry Potter's a book. Right. And so these movies from 1 and 2 were both written by JKR. They were not adapted and then written by Steve Kloves like the Harry Potter films were. Steve Kloves is a producer on 2 and I believe 1 as well, but the only writing credit goes to the author, which
I think that's where we lose a lot, is because she is a book author, not a screenplay writer, and there's two very different mediums there.
Yeah, and projecting ahead here, lots of reports for the upcoming Secrets of Dumbledore that the movie the author handed in her original script to Warner Brothers, and they went through significant rewrites and brought in Steve Kloves to help rewrite the script. I'm hoping that means that they're simplifying things and condensing a lot of these plots and making it a lot more A story, B story, C story, yes, and then a couple runners, because there's just way too much happening here. Anywho, what did I have next? Grindelwald and his headquarters.
Yes, and the weird killing all the people, then the weird child scene.
Yeah, the weird Harry baby flashback. That's what it felt like. I will say, and we can talk about it maybe. Yeah, we can talk about it later. Actually, no, let's talk about it here. I think it actually works here because it happens in this scene when Grindelwald. Yeah, when the guy says to him, "How come we can't just go take Credence? We know he's at the circus." And Grindelwald says, like, "No, he has to come to us. Let's go set it in motion." I don't know. I wouldn't call this fan service, but I think this movie does a lot to establish direct kind of visual allegories between and verbal allegories between Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts. Yes. Right? The scene of that French kid staring up at Grindelwald felt very much like the Harry Voldemort flashbacks we get in Potter, right? When he's in the crib, saying he must come to me, all that. Of course, the difference here is I think Grindelwald is way better and way more fascinating and way more complex of a leader than Voldemort. Voldemort is kind of like the watered down kind of like Wish version of
Grindelwald's like the true villain.
Like he has all the plans. Like Voldemort is more just like he must come to me, but then he starts blowing shit up.
Yeah,
Grindelwald like has all these intricate things going on and all these different things he's seeding and waiting to come to fruition, and like it's far more intellectual and complex and a lot less shock and awe and power, which I thought I think is one of the highlights of this film.
Yes.
Old-timey London looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
People seem to care a lot less in old times, even though there's like the whole crux of these movies is theoretically the relationship between wizards and muggles. People seem to care a lot less about doing magic in public.
Yeah.
Like the guy with the umbrella. And there's a lot of other moments too where it's like, well, that's blatant. Like, how do you explain? Like, half of France just got destroyed.
Yeah.
Anywho, then we get Jude Law, Dumbledaddy, Dumbledam,
that
in the flesh.
Initial moment of seeing him and him like looking back over his shoulder, and he has like the Dumbledore twinkle. He just encompasses what I have thought of like Dumbledore.
Yeah, I think it is completely fair for anyone who's come on this podcast before, Carrie, Paula, to name a couple that I distinctly recall, who say it's too soon to tell how they feel about Jude Law. I think it's fair if you want to say that. In my mind, he's the best.
Yes.
This is no disrespect. A lot of times in sports, we talk about, did a team win or did the other team lose? Let's be clear. Richard Harris does not lose against Jude Law. Jude Law just wins.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible portrayal in my mind. As people love the joke, I don't know how we go. I don't know how we go from Jude Law now to Richard Harris in like 40 years of canonical time.
Mm-hmm.
So like, fair enough. That's like, whatever. But still, I think Jude Law nails it.
I think so too. And part of it might also be that like, yes, Dumbledore is integral in Harry Potter, but in this, he has a lot more like meat to give to the story.
Oh, as they heavily intimate during some of those scenes, he has a lot of meat that he wants to give to.
I used the wrong word there, and as soon as I said it,
whew, boy, oh boy, there's a whole nother Mirror of Erised scene they cut out there. I think they actually hide this pretty blatantly throughout the movie. The amount of times Dumbledore says, "I cannot move against Grindelwald," or "I can't."
Yeah.
Right? Not that he won't or anything, it's that he can't, which, it's all a perspective and how you hear it thing. But once you know the truth, it's been staring at you in the face the whole movie.
Yes. It was specific wording for a reason.
Yeah. So next, unless you have anything else from the Windy.
Just the dropping of the Fox storyline.
Yeah.
It's like, we know it's like a foreshadow moment, but it's in there.
Yeah.
I'm also curious of like why it must be Newt. But
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing there. I agree, but I got nothing.
Yeah, the next thing I just have is baby nifflers.
Yeah, this felt directly like people loved this in the last movie, so
It's
let's
the
make
cute
like
animal
5
scene.
more of them and make a whole scene dedicated to them. Which brings up another point I have here. Newt's basement, like give me more of that.
Yes.
Right? Like I love
the Kelpie scene.
Well, that is only confusing because in A Court of Thorns and Roses, and in many other fantastical, mythical set writing, Kelpies are like these severely dangerous, lethal creatures that like lure and kill humans. And meanwhile, Newt's like riding one in his basement. It looks like a big seahorse. Like it looked like a seahorse with seaweed on it.
Yeah, that's kind of so per the Wikipedia. A Kelpie or water Kelpie is a shape-shifting spirit inhabiting lochs in Scottish folklore. It is usually described as a black horse-like creature able to adopt human form.
Interesting. Yeah, I love Newt's basement. I think there's just a lot of cool stuff happening there that like a series or a better movie would have explored in a lot more.
Yes. Question.
If it's about Bunty, I'm ready.
These are okay. I don't understand like why everybody loves her. I understand why they enjoy her wand because her wand is pretty cool, but everyone seems to be obsessed with Bunty. We understand her point, but she seems like people want her to be more integral to the story. The moment where she says you should take off your shirt.
She specifically says, perhaps you should take off your shirt.
It made me think of like awkward Ginny Harry scenes.
No, I loved this. This was a lot more, maybe because they're adults and not like awkward 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
But it's like laden with so much sexual tension.
Oh, yes.
Every look, the whole thing. She makes her thirsty cameo here. You see her in the trailer or whatever we're calling that teaser. What are we calling what's been released for Secrets of Dumbledore?
I think it's considered an actual trailer.
Okay, whatever has come out for Secrets of Dumbledore as of late January here. You see her there, so she's set to come back again in some way, shape, or form. Which I'm personally excited for. I know in that trailer you also see the boy. Yusuf Kama, I'm a lot less excited for that because his story. Anyhow, it's fine. Jacob shows up with Queenie.
Yes.
And Jacob says, "Hey, Newt, get over here, you maniac!" And I thought that was probably the best line of the movie. Love that. Here's a question I have for you. The tears, the rain from the last movie, when Jacob says it only erases bad memories, and I didn't have any of those. Newt had to have known that, right? Like Newt kind of acts surprised, but like Newt is like the creature master.
But are we also believing that's how, and that Queenie didn't actually do something to bring his memory back?
There's as far as we know, there's nothing Queenie can do to bring his memory back, right? So the movie tells us that's how it worked.
Yeah.
The movie tells us that only bad memories were erased by that. I didn't have any. Queenie also helped me remember the bad things or the other things, right? So that I have to take it at face value.
Mm-hmm.
Which at that point I'm like, well, Newt should know this.
And it was also a test run of what Newt wasn't positive, but was pretty sure he could do that. But also, how does Newt define Jacob's experience as a good versus bad memory?
All I'm saying is, if I'm writing and directing this movie, I give Newt a smirk at that point because he knows that he had this. The smirk suggests that Newt knew this was a thing that could happen. Mm-hmm. He's like, Newt plays it. Eddie Redmayne plays it as like genuine surprise. Like, oh, that's really how that. Okay, like to me, it would have been a lot more effective if Newt was like, yeah, that's what I had wanted. I'm glad that Queenie helped put the dots together here.
Yeah.
I love after the potion has been removed from him, extricated from him. Very nice to see you. Where the hell am I right now? London. Ah, I always wanted to go here.
He has great lines.
It's great. Dan Fogler is just phenomenal.
Yes, he does so good with like that comedic response.
One question I have for you, I'm curious if you noticed anything throughout the movie. The spell work that is used throughout the movie, did you have any sort of reaction to it?
As in visually or?
The etymology?
Not like, I think I've just accepted that like at this point in the movies, they're not going to, occasionally they use words. They're not always going to use them.
What I don't understand is like, for instance, Newt, when repairing the postcard, says papyrus reparo, which like papyrus paper. I get it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't reparo just work? But then conversely, at the end of the movie, when they're fighting the big blue dragon, all they say is finite.
Yeah.
So like, I don't understand when they choose to be hyper specific with the language and when they choose to be more vague with the spell.
Yeah.
I'm not totally following that.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily, that's one of the things where, to your point at the beginning, if you're just watching the movie, it really doesn't matter. But the first movie asks a lot of questions about use of magic and application of magic that it doesn't answer. And I'm fine with that because it's the first movie. The second movie continues to ask more questions about use, application, and philosophy of magic and definitely doesn't answer them. So it's a growing ledger of questions that I have. What do you have next?
The entrance into Paris's Diagon Alley. It feels really like in the middle of the Muggle world.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Like the Leaky Cauldron's like on a Muggle street, but it's not like just some statue literally in the middle of the street that happens to probably regularly be a stopping point for security guards.
Also, here's a question I have. So for St. Mungo's, we know that it is the facade is made to resemble an old out of business department store or whatever. Mm-hmm. Do we know, like the Leaky Cauldron has, it has an enchantment over it. Do we, trying to figure out the right way to phrase this, is Diagon Alley like physically a space that the Muggles just aren't aware of? Or is it, because so the reason I'm asking is because the French, what we're calling, I guess, the French Diagon Alley here, is literally just superimposed right over the Muggle, the same exact layout. So is there a whole different dimension that they're going into for that? Because that doesn't make any sense, right? Like St. Mungo's makes sense because
it's an actual building.
Right. I've always assumed that there's just some massive enchantment over Diagon Alley in the UK, right? That just looks like a bunch of rundown, whatever.
Or it looks like shops or office buildings or something.
Right. It's a physical space that wizards have co-opted, right? Yeah. The French Diagon Alley, if again, I'm not to get the listeners confused, that's I guess what we're going to call it, right? Literally just looks like it's like superimposed right over the existing Muggle space, but not in like a co-opted way, like St. Mungo. I didn't understand that at all.
I don't understand because then I'm like, is it like a crazy undetectable extension charm and it literally is in this statue?
See, that could be it. Or does that statue transport you? Is this a multiverse? Like, does it transport? Like, I don't know.
Does it move you across space to another location?
It's a really cool piece of movie making to show that, but it doesn't make any sense.
I like how the entrance works. I don't like the location of it.
Yeah, the location's odd, but I don't understand. It's a great movie moment that doesn't translate if you think about these movies at all from like a show Bible canonical. What are they trying to do here?
Yes, agreed.
The circus. Do you want to talk about anything that happens during the circus? Because I don't really care.
The only thing I have is our entrance to Nagini, which was a huge reveal when they were first teasing, like they kept who that character was under wraps for a very long time until right before the movie released.
Yeah, there's been a theory going around the internet the past couple of years since this movie came out that Nagini and Credence are only speaking Parseltongue to each other. And so that's the reason. But that can't be true because Nagini speaks to Irma Dugard speaks to a couple other people whose names I'm forgetting in this moment, just because I forget the exact scene. But like that theory does not hold up. So
I don't follow that theory.
It'll be interesting to see if they try to just change that in future movies and be like, oh, she always was. If she wasn't, our bad.
Because like then, yes, she's like the maledictus. She's part snake, but she's also a human person.
Yeah. Well, right. But if the theory is because you always see her with Credence.
Yes.
Right. And even in a lot of those scenes of Credence, she's doing a lot of like talking with her eyes, like not a lot of vocalized talking. So I can see why people would think that, but it can be disproven by she has conversation with other characters throughout the movie.
Yes.
Anyhow, just something I picked up on. I thought the shot of the circus packing up with the house elf was really, really cool.
Yes.
Again, really great cinematography, really great shot. Use of comma, it just makes no sense to me. The character, I don't understand. And Tina, once again, is not very good at her job.
Mine literally just says Tina trusting random dude.
Like, Tina is not good at her job.
No.
Tina, I'm not saying she's a bad witch. I'm not saying, whatever. But much
she's
like
supposed to be like a spy here.
Yeah.
And she just takes this guy that she's never met at face value and be like, sure, show me the thing.
And I feel like you'd have like your hand on your wand. Like, she ends up locked. I don't get it. Much like Fantastic Beasts 1, it's just like these confusing moments where she's just like blatantly outmatched for reasons passing my understanding. Next, we get Skull Hookah. And like, I remember, this is a credit to Binge Folks. I remember them talking about this. Like when they looked it up on Pottermore or like on Harry Potter Wiki or whatever, it's literally called like the Skull Hookah. Like there's not some more complicated thing for it. But again, there's a lot of weird blowing magic going on in this movie.
There is.
Because Grindelwald twice or three times uses the Skull Hookah to blow out some form of image. Newt does that weird thing where he is not allowed to be in France, yet walks right into the middle of the French magic area and then makes a whole big scene with blowing magic.
I have so many questions about that because you have that and then you have like he uses it like to hear things. Like what is going on with the wand?
I don't know. I really don't know. Very bizarre. Cliffs of Dover. Those were actually the Cliffs of Dover.
Yes.
Really beautiful shot.
Gorgeous.
She has eyes like a salamander. Don't say that. And then again here, get the blowing magic. This is where I'm like, hey. So two things. Well, I guess two things. The weird fisherman guy who gave them the port key. When he literally threatens to out you in exchange for more money, Realpolitik says you kill that man or you take him prisoner because 20 galleons or whatever to keep quiet. If someone offers him 30, he's going to take it. So like at that point, you got to get rid of the fisherman guy. He's got to go push him over the cliff, move on with your day.
But what if that fisherman guy is your only source of getting out of the country and returning to said country?
Well, no, why can't they take a regular train? Why can't they? The channel doesn't exist, but why can't they take like a boat? Or like they could take Muggle forms of transportation. They're inconvenient, but they can do it.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is if someone threatens to out your big secret in exchange for money, they'll out it in exchange for more money.
But this is also Newt. Newt is not going to just kill someone.
Stuff him in your case and tie his hands and say, when we're done, I'll let you go. Because he's a liability.
Still not doing that.
He's a liability. Then Newt shows up in the middle of Magic Paris and starts making a whole big scene.
But Newt's not going to do that.
Yeah. Newt makes a whole big scene.
Yeah.
Trying to stay hidden, not allowed to be in France. Look at me blowing gold dust everywhere.
Go to if this street is just like Diagon Alley, busy street where a bunch of people are going to recognize you. Your face has been in the paper. Your brother's a war hero. People know you.
Yeah, the quote here from Newt is, she has incredibly narrow feet. Have you noticed? Just come on. Anyhow, French ministry, gorgeous. Queenie's anxiety attack, breakdown, whatever, I thought was like painfully well done.
It was.
Like it was beautiful, but also heartbreaking. Here's a question I have.
Mm-hmm.
Grindelwald, as we've established, has all these plans, right? And they're like multi-step. Like they're not like Voldemort's very step 1, step 2, we're done. Grindelwald's like, hey, step 1, I'm not going to see you again until step 30, but I'll see you again at step 30.
He's got long-term plans. Baltimore only had an initial, let's get this kid dead.
How does Vinda find Queenie? Because, like, for all the planning, Grindelwald could not have planned that. Grindelwald could not have planned Queenie to come to Paris because Tina was in Paris. Like,
but weren't they both just in the French ministry? Like, it was.
But she didn't see her because she was pushing Abernathy old lady into the elevator.
Yes.
So, like, how does Vinda know that? There's so many questions. How does Vinda know Queenie's magic? How does Vinda know?
Well,
and by Vinda, I mean by extension Grindelwald.
Yeah.
How do they know that she's a seer or whatever she's got?
Well, because then the question is Vinda also some sort of like legilimens or that she can sense it? Because when she started talking to Queenie's mind went silent. So she's like blocking. So is there something that connects in there where, like, even though we don't see her, notice her in the ministry, was there like, there's someone here that has this?
I had accepted that as movie making, right? It's a very classic thing, right? To have like the hustle and bustle of a city, and all of a sudden someone taps you on the shoulder, and all of a sudden everything else kind of zones out because you're talking to someone. Mm-hmm. I had kind of gone easiest possible answer is the right one, but that would make sense too. Anyhow, like that's one where it's like that he couldn't have planned for that, right? Because then once he meets her, like he clearly puts a plan in motion there. Like, how does he know all? Like, there's just so many questions. Maybe she is because there's so many questions.
No, because Abernathy didn't know. Because it's like, well, maybe there's the Abernathy connection there. Because I was like, why use him? But like, yeah, but he wasn't aware of that.
Anywho, next thing I have written is dead Irma. Yeah, I got nothing to say there. Dead Irma. I don't understand where she lives. She lives in like the rafters of a building that looks like it almost looks like a penthouse for a person without a home. Like, because like it's not really like a living space. It's like it's like in an attic. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Grimson. I don't understand Grimson at all. Like he's able to go into walls apparently, which was bizarre. Next, you're in the sewers. That again, two weird scenes of people live here. Because first you have Irma in the rafters of this building. Next, you have Yusuf Kama in the sewers, which also have a dungeon in them, like a cell, which I didn't fully get. And he goes, "You see, either he dies or I do," and then just like passes out, which is just hilarious. The Zowu.
So, based off this scene with the Zowu, do we think we get another creature dance in Secrets of Dumbledore? Because it seems like that's going to be a recurring thing. Is that there's going to be one creature where Eddie Redmayne has to do some crazy dance to calm down.
Yeah, that feels right.
I honestly enjoy them because they're just really amusing to watch.
See, I think this scene or this transition is the best example of what I was talking about, where the editing is just really rough in this movie, right? Because after the Zowu was in the case, Newt, Tina, Jacob, and Yusuf apparate out, and it's a jump cut right to Travers and Theseus and the Ministry people apparating onto the bridge at Hogwarts. And so your eye is like, well, these people just apparate out. These people are showing, but they're different people.
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't a good.
I can see the editor, and again, I don't really know who to like quote unquote blame here. I can see someone saying, well, there's apparating out of a scene. We can just apparate into another scene, but they're different.
The different storylines. Like, would have been better to go to Flamel's place and then go into this other scene?
Yeah, or just have more of an establishing shot for Hogwarts, like something,
or have them walking away and not apparating.
Something.
Okay, so when the trailers for this movie released, this was the scene that everyone lost their shit for. Was seeing Hogwarts again. How did you feel
about seeing Hogwarts again?
With the music, like it was like very like.
Oh, I think what they should have done is because the different directors for the Harry Potter films changed the layout of Hogwarts up until about, I think finally in Goblet, we have a solidified Hogwarts. I think in order to be respectful to the canonical timeline that Chris Columbus set out, they should have designed Hogwarts for this movie to look like Chris Columbus's, where that bridge doesn't exist. Like technically, that's the Hogwarts that we see in 19. When does Harry first go to school? 1992, something like that, right? That sounds right.
Yeah.
Because he's born in 80, and so 1991. The Hogwarts that we see in 91 does not resemble. I say this in jest, but they should have been more,
but also like the walking across the bridge has become a thing for this.
That's all they wanted. That's all they cared about.
They wanted the bridge, because they used it again at the end of the movie.
All they cared about for this were the bridge. They cared about serotonin from the Great Hall, gratuitous shot that has no reason to be in the film, and then giving us last names that we recognize.
Yes.
And the Boggart scene.
Which is like, Dumbledore's not a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
Well, we're told he's not allowed to be anymore after this, which is how they explain that away.
Yeah, but it's...
I know. Look, but that's not the biggest issue I have with any of this shit.
No.
It's not the biggest issue anyone has. McGonagall, who should be not even in utero at this point, is now teaching as a full-grown adult.
He's teaching. Also, even if it is her, she would never run after a student. It's McGonagall.
Yeah,
She's not chasing a student.
None of it makes any sense canonically. I think like it's a serotonin boost that they try to give you here, and it works. But if you think about it, it really doesn't make sense.
Because there's some fan services where I'm okay with this, but this one I'm just like.
Yeah, the Lita flashbacks, I understand why they have them in there because it's important to tell that story of.
And this was another visual representation back to the Harry Potter movies. Was Newt in front of the window was very similar to Harry in the front of the window. I forget which movie it was, but he's in his room and it's just him in front of the window, and it felt very similar.
Yeah, I kind of skipped through a lot of the flashback stuff. Just mediocre to me. The Boggart scene is just there to it's there. They need to tell us the Lita baby falling in the ocean thing. And so they set it in the form of a boggart, and they set it with the very Lupin-esque.
The Lupin class, yeah.
Yeah, so like whatever. Then you have Lita and Albus in a much dissected scene that many people have talked about that I don't think we need to spend too much time on, where he says, confessing is a great relief of burden, or so I've been told.
Yes.
Or
I want to know if we ever find out how Newt is actually expelled.
Yeah, I feel like we'll get some shitty flashback in Secrets of Dumbledore, and if there's a fourth one, Yeah, so then we get Queenie and Vinda, and then Queenie and Grindelwald. My question, is there a moment that occurs in that townhouse that Queenie is magicked, whether it's the Imperious Curse or some other form of controlling potion, magic, whatever? Because I don't understand I understand that she's gullible. I understand that she believes in love, and I understand that she loves Jacob. But the heel turn at the end of this movie, coupled with the way she shouts at him, does not feel true to character. I
have always felt that she has been magicked at some point, even when they meet back up in the meeting, and she's like weirdly like she's almost reflecting how Jacob was when he appeared at Newt's with like the very high excitement. And she kind of has that. She's like, "Oh, you're here. Great. Let's watch this." Like it does not feel true to her character.
Yeah.
So I personally believe she's somehow not with a love spell, but like magicked in some way, and in some way that she believes this enough to walk through the fire at the end.
Yeah. And it's an interesting couple things, right? Because I actually think it's really smart movie making to show us her rejecting the insistent teapot. Yeah. Because like theoretically, that's how one would be poisoned, right? Like something like that. So you see her reject that, which means she has her alert up, right? She has her senses guarded. Yeah. So then they're going to tell us in a future movie that she was magicked, right? And that also would explain why she has that weird shout when she goes through the blue flames at the end, because everyone else walks through it. All the other believers walk through it. Nothing.
Yeah.
The one guy who dies makes that yelling.
Yeah.
She makes the yelling, but still makes it through. So yeah, I have to believe that. And depending on how they explain it and how they show it in future movies, this could be really well done. I don't know if I have so much faith in their ability, given how clunky it's been so far. But Mirror of Erised, which doesn't really show desire, because apparently it also shows memory. Because you see Grindelwald and Dumbledore as kids, which it shouldn't have done, unless they're saying that's what he desires, is to go back to being a kid again with Grindelwald.
Like, desires to have that friendship again, and it's just being shown through them at a previous state.
Right, but the way it's filmed very much is like I'm showing you the memory of us making the blood pact, and I'm showing you with me and Grindelwald as adults.
Like, they could have done that easily with a pensieve, because we've seen Dumbledore use that, so it would make sense that he could easily be like looking back at his memories.
Yeah, the Flamel house, we don't meet Flamel here. We see the house. I want to be clear about that, because we'll talk about Nicola Flamel later. The eye parasite is the grossest thing in this movie by a long shot. I didn't need to see that.
When Jacob says calamari, in my head, I was like, oh, that would be something Stephen would have responded with.
No, I would have been throwing up in the corner.
Well, like, not in the sense where you watch someone pull it up his eyeball.
Yeah, well, Tina leaves. Jacob, you didn't mention salamanders, did you? Which is funny. That's because you've got Middlehead, one of the funnier lines, I think, in the movie, too. How does Newt know that there's a box in the French ministry that has the genealogy? Because Newt says to Tina, like, there's a box in the ministry that will confirm credence, blah, 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 blah.
I wonder if, because of Newt and Lita's previous relationship, he knows more about her than he lets on. And because that's the only thing that would make sense, is that he's aware of it because of his friendship with her.
But see, this is where I get confused, because it doesn't
make sense. Like, there's
why is that the thing Lita would, like, I don't understand.
Divulge, yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like it's not, I don't think it's a significant thing to have, like, the wizarding world in terms of number of families is not like overly numerous.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like they have to keep millions of records. But there's enough. It's not like they only keep records for certain people. But, like, I don't understand why Newt would know that there's like that the French ministry keeps these records. Like, I don't understand how he comes across that information, because, like, it's something that either Lita's told him, and I don't understand why she would, or why, like, she would care to tell him. Like, it doesn't matter. Or the other answer is Dumbledore has to have told him, but I would have loved to have seen that when they're in the London bus, the parked bus at the beginning.
Yeah, but then I also want to know how Dumbledore would also know this, because...
Well, Dumbledore would know, because Dumbledore knows things because he's ancient and brilliant and well-connected. Right? Like, if you say to me, hey, who would know that the French ministry has a department where they keep genealogy records? Mm-hmm. Dumbledore or Newt? I don't think twice that Dumbledore has that information. Like, I don't have to think about it.
Do you know that it's like a department that keeps specifically genealogy records?
I don't know.
Because in my head, it was more like a
bank vault?
Yes, like a bank safety deposit box where people can store things they want protected.
Perhaps. I don't know. But either way, it either is something that is so inconsequential because it's a common thing for people to do, mm-hmm. that I don't understand why Lita would have shared it in the first place. Or it's something so consequential because it's super critical that I need to have seen Dumbledore communicate that to Newt, so I know how Newt knows it.
Yeah.
It can't be somewhere in the middle. It has to be one or the other.
No, you're right.
I thought the Grindelwald from you, for you phrase pivot was really well done. Like, I thought that's a really clever piece of dialogue. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you want from me? From you, nothing. For you, everything I never had. Like, I thought that was really, really good. Do you want to talk about Nicola Flamel?
This is one of the moments of fan service where I enjoyed it. I like this throw into seeing him. We get a glimpse of the Philosopher's Sorcerer's Stone. I
thought it all fell flat. Like, I feel like they needed 2 more scenes with him.
Yeah,
to round him out a little bit more.
We need more information, but I did like that he was the safe house.
Yeah, sure. I'm on board with that. It almost feels like for as little of screen time as they give him, it would have been more effective to have him not be at the house the whole time. Like, you never meet him.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
you could glimpse the stone, you kind of know where you're at, but you never see him. Because then, like, the thing with the book, and then, like, no, you have to go. Like,
right? Like, I could...
We also are aware he has a wife.
You reset that whole scene where Jacob is just looking around for food. It's like, a lot of books here about alchemy. And then you see the stone. Like,
oh, that's nice. Like,
you know, like, it was supposed to be funny the way Nicola Flamel kind of pitter patters across the floor and then the handshake.
Looks like a ghost. Yeah.
It fell really flat for me. I just didn't need it. So I don't know. When Tina in the next scene binds Theseus and Newt damn near has to have a change of pants. Mm-hmm. Thought that was great. Super terrifying French records woman, as I described her. Immediately when they first show up at that. Well, here's a question. Here's what I don't get. Newt and Tina come in and they have to deal with her, and they go in on the ground level. Mm-hmm. When Lita shows up like 30 seconds later, she doesn't have to go past the terrifying woman, theoretically, because all of a sudden she appears on this top level. Why are there two? I didn't understand that. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like, my only thoughts to make it logically make sense is we've already seen Lita here with Theseus, and that she's already in the ministry, that maybe she didn't have to go through like the check-in process. But it still doesn't. But no,
because the check-in process exists. It's like a sub room within the greater security of the ministry. So, like, either you have to go through it or you don't. Why do you have to go through it for one level, but you don't the other? But both levels have the same access to the actual material. Didn't understand that at all. Did not compute. And the salamander moment that everyone loves. Anything you want to throw in there?
No.
Great. I wrote in all caps here, terrifying French records woman, because she becomes more scary.
I loved the movement of the records room and how it just like moves.
Again, this is a moment where the spells, I forget the spell that Lita uses to turn around the thing when she spies Pickett, but she uses like a very specific, whatever the Latin word for like rotate is. Like, it was like papyrus reparo instead of just saying reparo. It was a similar thing. I wrote next the two things I wrote, so I'll let you take over should you desire. I wrote Lestrange Tomb, none of this makes sense. Whole flashback, boo. So I got nothing here. Anything you'd like to talk about from this whole set of scenes?
It was like trying to get all the pieces of what they've laid out solved in one scene so that they can move on to the next big issue.
Yep. Next big issue being the rally inside of the chamber. Thought this was brilliantly filmed, brilliantly written for what it's worth, brilliantly acted. Like Grindelwald walking out and you just get the shadow from behind him of his hair and his head, right? His speech. I thought that was all absolutely brilliant. One question I had when he does the skull hookah and shows World War II happening. What's your interpretation there? Is he trying to manipulate the crowd into thinking that they are going to be subjugated by these muggles? Is he just showing them the destruction and might that muggles will use against each other, destroying the world? Does he genuinely believe that? Or option 3, does he genuinely believe that this vision he's seeing through the skull hookah is what the muggles are going to do to them? Because if so, he's kind of like Melisandre from Game of Thrones in that he's seeing the future, but he's not seeing the whole picture. He's kind of misinterpreting what he's seeing.
Yeah. I think he's trying to show that this is the future that's coming. And not necessarily that he believes that they will be subjected to it because of the muggles, but as a way to show that we want to avoid this and we need to stop letting the muggles, because like in the first movie, we know based on what Newt has said about the war and being with dragons, that he was also involved in it. And therefore it wasn't a muggle versus wizard thing. It was both sides were involved.
Yeah, I don't know where I fall on it. I don't know that I necessarily care where I fall on it. I'm curious what their intention there was.
I'm not sure. That moment felt like it was more important to show Jacob's response for the Queenie situation versus everyone else in the audiences.
Yep. And again, talking about Grindelwald's ability to plan ahead and kind of gaslight people, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Like the way that he keeps talking very softly, very calmly, knowing that someone's going to jump at his words.
Yeah.
Like absolutely spot on. Next, I have in all caps with an exclamation point, the flame of truth. We've already talked about that. I also do want to point out in some of the original concept art for the movie, they had black flames. And I think in the script, the flames were black. When it came out on screen, they tried to render it. It just didn't look good. So they went with the blue. I like that, actually.
I like the blue. It's also already a dark scene that it's you need some color in there.
I think it works. We already talked about this before when talking about Queenie and if she's enchanted or not. I do think if she's not enchanted, there's a severe devaluation of her character here. Because like it really I don't know. I feel bad for the character of Queenie. I think Alison Sudol portrays it wonderfully. But like the Lita, look, this is another thing where I'm like, this was stupid. When Lita's like, I love you.
She's looking at both of them.
But it's worthless. Because I'm not invested one iota in Newt and Lita. I'm invested in them as friends. Mm-hmm. And I'm invested in that they have a close bond. But I am not invested in whether she was saying I love you to Theseus or Newt, because all I care about is Newt and Tina.
Exactly. Like if there is anything there, romantically, it's very one-sided and it's not on Newt.
Yeah, I just don't like
we've already seen him made that distinction with the picture in his case.
Yeah, I don't care at all. Like I care about the characters and I care about their relationship. That scene was meant to be like the big provoking question of, was she saying I love you to Theseus or no? I just don't care.
It was like trying to make a love triangle that the setup hadn't ever been there, minus the accidental article just to throw Tina off. I really, at the end of the battle, when Grindelwald apparates away, the I hate Paris line felt like it was out of Pirates of the Caribbean. Like he delivers it flawlessly. It just doesn't fit within the movie. It's just like a weird
scene. It's like a weird comedic button to an otherwise very serious thing.
Well, not even just that. It's like a weird comedic button for a character who is not the comedic character of the movie.
Yeah.
He's been very straight and very set in his way. That's a weird comment from that character.
It's a classic Johnny Depp line. It's something that he delivers flawlessly, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. I guess feels like Dumbledore probably wants to have this meeting not on the bridge and instead inside a private room. It's they're showing off the blood pact. It's a whole big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just having it out in the open. Whoever is inside the castle can look out and see all this happening. I understand they want to do the scene of just Newt and Dumbledore walking across the bridge together and leaving everyone else behind. But it feels like you want to have a little more privacy for
this type of conversation.
Yeah. What do I know?
And then Jacob just staring at a crumbled down building, not knowing what he's looking at.
Is he?
Well, he's a muggle.
Or has he been brought inside the magic?
That's what I'm wondering. I kind of would love
he has to have been brought inside the magic. Again,
I didn't pay it. I've read it. I didn't think about it when I was watching to pay attention to his face at the end of this movie, but
I didn't even think twice about this scene. You're right that they're asking a question about.
There was something about I had read, and I didn't think to look at it when we were watching this, is that someone said he looks very confused during this whole scene, and that's what they correlated it to. So I would have to rewatch the scene to watch Jacob specifically to see.
My assumption is that much like when he's inside the French magic areas, much like when he's inside of Makusa, for that matter, he's just brought inside of the magic through association.
He's past that point of...
It's a good question, but it's one that perhaps as an oversight, if they're trying to ask that question as movie makers, I did not even think twice about it.
Yeah.
Which is a miss on their part then, in my perspective. And then we wrap with Nurmengard and Credence and Queenie and Grindelwald. Anything you want to talk about here, or do we want to get into
this scene leans more to Queenie being spelled because she is useful to Grindelwald. Because she can gauge where Credence is at.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I don't disagree whatsoever.
Yeah, we are going to try to stay away from any theories yet, because we will be having an entire episode on theories coming out after this one.
Favorite character, who won the movie? Or sorry, that's not right. Let me start that over. Who won the movie? Favorite scene, most surprising thing?
I think Dumbledore may have won the movie. And I know he's not in it a lot, but you can see him orchestrating things.
I want to be clear. You are saying the character of Dumbledore, not the actor Jude Law.
Oh, I don't know. It might be Jude Law.
I'm fine. Can
I have both?
I'm just clarifying, just so.
Yes. Because I always love Newt, but I really think, I think Johnny Depp and Grindelwald obviously have like a huge part in this movie, but watching Dumbledore's movements of when he is bound to not be able to do something and how he is manipulating in a way to get things going.
Feels like they're going to have to show us the flashback in a future movie, maybe this next one, to the actual formation of the Blood Pact, because I think the language is going to be telling. Because what does it mean to move against someone, right? Because is hunting down Credence moving against, like before when he was still in the circus, right, at the start of this movie, is going to Paris to get Credence technically moving against Grindelwald? Right now that Credence is in the protection, quote unquote, of Grindelwald, it would be, but I will be it's much like the prophecy in that I think the words really matter, because I think they're going to dictate,
and we're going to need to know what those words are.
Yeah. Best scene and most surprising thing.
Best scene, I really love the Grindelwald conducting scene. It's just beautiful to watch. He's straight up like conducting an orchestra with magic. Surprised me. I didn't hate it as much as I was expecting to hate it. I'm not saying I loved it, but when I started watching it, I was into it enough to actually pay attention versus being like, can this end already? On that, I've only seen this a few times. I haven't rewatched this one a lot. And it's been quite some time, so there was no like major recollections of this movie for me. What about you?
Yeah, I think as for who won the movie, I'm going to go two different actors, and I'm going to split it between them. I think Johnny Depp and Jude Law both won the movie, with Dan Fogler being a very close runner-up. Dan Fogler was quite frankly like the only they tried to put a lot of levity in this movie, and the only times I actually laughed or smiled were at Dan Fogler's stuff. He again is just a tour de force in these first two movies. I thought Grindelwald, Johnny Depp's portrayal, is something I will miss in these films, and we've talked about this before. I'm not going to do a whole soliloquy here yet again. Feel free to go listen to our past episodes, either on Fantastic Beasts 1, where we talk about it minimally, or a full episode where I shouted for a while sometime in 2021. I'm sure you can find in our backlog of episodes. I will miss his portrayal. I thought it was spot on to both the brute force, but also the deep chill that he's meant to evoke. I thought it was really, really good. And Jude Law as Dumbledore absolutely nails, to your point, the twinkle in the eye, the kind of the one of the things that is associated with the twinkle in the eye, but isn't talked about as much, is Dumbledore's ability to turn phrase and use words very intentionally and specifically. And you see that both whimsically, but also plot importantly throughout this movie. I thought was really, really good. My favorite scene is either all the Grindelwald stuff at the rally, from him walking out to his speech, the music they have underpinning all of that, and then him conducting, I thought was absolutely beautiful in a haunting way. You're right. Runner-up, just to give a different one than what you gave, is Jacob at Newt's townhouse. It's so good to see you, you maniac. Get over here, you maniac. Right? I thought that was really good. Most surprising thing, I disliked this more than Goblet.
Do you still dislike it? Well, no, that's a new movement. You're moving it to
I'm moving it to the bottom. Here's why. Goblet struggles for a lot of different reasons. One of the big ones being they removed so much in adapting the book into the movie that you lose what the core of that plot is about. And the way they choose to reset it for the movie, it just does not make sense. This movie suffers from the opposite, in that this should have been a book that they whittled down, but because it's just the author writing the screenplay, there's like 18 different plots going on. And it's too clunky. There's way too much going on that theoretically all services the same end goal for the movie, but it really doesn't, because there's way too much. Like, one of the biggest questions that people were Googling after this movie was released was the ship that Credence came over on the Titanic? And like, if that's where we're at as a fandom, like, that's an issue, right? Minerva McGonagall's birth date, that's an issue. Like, there's way too many almost red herrings that aren't intentional. Like, they're not intentional red herrings that the writer put into the movie, but there are things that are drawing my eye and my attention away from what the movie's about that are to the detriment of my experience enjoying the film. So that was most surprising for me. I know you don't want to do theories. I'm curious how you feel having just wrapped this movie, thinking about what's coming next for Secrets of Dumbledore.
I'm going to go with what I hope to get out of the movie. Since we are going to kind of dive a little more into theories and other things, and we will have a guest on for that one. So this movie ended at a point where, and we've talked about this during the Harry Potter movies, where there's no hope at the end of this movie. Like, everything seems to have gone wrong. Queenie is gone. Everything's very dark and bleak. Like, we see Dumbledore is now kind of like, they're working towards figuring it out, but we don't know where this goes. I really hope, for one, the storyline is a lot better, that we get some actual plot and a through line without all these points. I would like some clarification on some things, and I'm hoping we get some of these plot holes just solved to a point where we don't have to worry about them. But I don't know if they can do all that in one movie.
I disagree that there's no hope. I agree with everything you said up into that, and that the scene with Dumbledore and Newt on the bridge, I think, is hope abundant, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that I'll let you finish, but I that's the one thing I was like, huh? I actually think there is a lot of hope. I think it's dark. You're right. I think it's ominous, but I think there's no hope if they didn't have the blood pact, right? If they didn't physically have it in their hands. Like, I think if Grindelwald still had it, no hope.
Okay. No, you're right, because they do have it. There is, yes. Thank you, Niffler, for saving the day, for giving us hope. I'm cautiously optimistic because of the changes they made in preparation of going into the third movie.
Yes, I think if they simplify, I think Steve Kloves stepping into a more engaged role from just being one of the producers to co-writing, which I believe is how his role has been described for this upcoming film. is crucial, because Steve Kloves is the person who adapted the original Harry Potter novels into their movie form. So if in theory what's being done here is JKR is writing screenplays of sorts, or what I'll call even unpublished book, like an unpublished book, and Steve Kloves is adapting that for film, I think that promises a much better viewing experience for all of us. I think what they have to do is kind of narrow the lens and simplify a lot of stuff here. Like, I think if you go into this movie, focus on a couple different things. A, the history of the Blood Pact. How do we get around the Blood Pact?
Yes.
B, Queenie and Jacob. C, Newt and Tina. And D, last one, what I'll broadly call Theseus, the tension that has to exist between Theseus and the Ministry, Dumbledore and the Ministry, like that. I think if those are the 4 tent poles that kind of hold the next movie up, I think you're in a good spot. I think you can get all the other points within those, but like I know the Aurelius Dumbledore Credence thing is a major thing, but I don't think you lead with that. I think there's too much stuff happening. Like, if we get a whole nother Yusuf Kamam, the brother of the son who killed the sister who took the daughter on the ship, way too much.
Yeah.
I think if they narrow this down and really focus, like I was just listening, you're making a face as I'm playing with scissors in my hand. I got scissors in my hand, y'all. It's whatever. I think if they just narrow the lens down and say what really matters to this story, right? What really matters. And actually, I'll probably, now that I say it out loud, I'm going to switch the Theseus bit and say Credence is the 4th. The things that really matter.
Credence does, we need to solve Credence. To
the story that I believe they're trying to tell, what truly matters. You have Grindelwald versus Dumbledore. And for the sake of this upcoming movie, the Blood Pact is the obstacle between them. Mm-hmm. Whether that gets resolved at the end of the movie or not, that's the number one thing they've got going on. Number 2, the romances, right? Tina and Newt, whatever the hell's going on there. And then Queenie and Jacob, right? That's a core tension that exists. And then number 3, because I can condense those 2 into one. Number 3 then is, and I don't think you get resolution at the end of this next movie, but whatever is going on with Credence and his lineage and his obscurialness. Yes. That's the other thing. Those are disregard the first 2 minutes of my monologue here. Those are the 3 things: the Grindelwald, Dumbledore, the romances, and Credence. If you have any other major plot lines going on, I think they've made a mistake.
I agree. And the question is, how are they committing to the 5 movies they initially wanted, or are they going to try to clear things up and do one final and end with 4? Because I don't think they could solve it all in just the next movie. And if question. If they try to solve it all in the next movie, because we know this is supposed to end with the big Dumbledore Grindelwald fight. If that's in the next movie, there's going to be too much information shoved into the next movie.
It's a great question. I'm curious. I don't think this necessarily answers that question.
Because they've already changed things that they had initially said they were doing, like with locations and everything.
Yeah, it's no longer a Brazil thing.
Yeah.
This doesn't answer your question. I'm just curious what other movies are coming out in the same window. I'm Googling this as we speak here. February. You can cut all this out.
Batman's the month before.
I'm well aware. Thank you. So Morbius comes out April 1st, which is 2 weeks before Fantastic Beasts. Sonic comes out the week before. I'm not saying, I'm just listing everything.
No, I know. I'm just thinking of them. I'm like, it's not going to have a strong, that's going to be more family.
That weird ambulance movie where Jake Gyllenhaal robs the bank and then is on a manhunt in an ambulance. I've seen a trailer for it 17 times. It doesn't look very good. That comes out April 8th. Some movie called The Bad Guys is slated for April at some point. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't seem
too big to run it against.
Yeah. Thinking overall in 2022, there are some big tent poles coming out that are going to have some competition.
Yes.
But it doesn't look like the release window has any major movies that are going to kind of push eyeballs out of the Secrets of Dumbledore theater. So regardless, you and I will be at Universal Orlando at the movie theater in City Walk to watch Secrets of Dumbledore. We hope to see all of you there. If you are planning on going to see Secrets of Dumbledore at Universal, drop a line. Creating Magic Podcast on Instagram, creatingmagicpodcast@gmail.com if that's your preferred thing. We'll do a little meetup thing, and by that I mean we'll take a photo, I'll tell some stupid joke, and then we'll go our separate ways.
Well, we might do some live reactions if we find some people down there and see.
That's probably smarter. I wasn't thinking about podcast stuff. So, I was just thinking about making friends.
Yeah, let's make friends, and then we would love to hear your opinions afterwards.
Great. Bye.
Bye.
With another clever idea to get us killed, or worse, expelled.